Hello, 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 and welcome to the CEO Sit Down. We are in a new location. If you haven't seen any of my social media for the last month, I've moved houses, I've moved offices. My life is in a lot of transition. All right, before we get started, I'm going to make sure we are actually on live because it's been a minute since we've been on. This is supposed to be live on Instagram, but it doesn't look like it's on. Let's see. Hold on, let me check one of my other feeds, see if it'll come up. No. Okay. Let's try something here, guys. I may have to jump out and jump back in because this is acting real funky. Okay, hold on. Edit. Let's see what's going on here. Create live video. CEO Sit Down, public. Technology, we love it. And yet, it is a pain in the butt. See if this will work. Okay. So for those of you on YouTube, please forgive the delay on starting. You guys are coming through loud and clear, but for some reason, unable to connect. Why? Go live. Connect streaming software to go live. It is connected. This is the problem with this. All right, well, we're just going to go on YouTube and I'll repost to Instagram later. The wonders of this technology. They did an update, and when they did the update, I don't know, my Instagram has not liked it. We could just set up a phone and go live from the phone, but that would take time that I don't have today. So we're going to skip that. We'll just repost to Instagram later today. Welcome to the CEO Sit Down. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren Hatch. I am the CEO and founder of Live Fearless Media and LF Teams. I work in the media, marketing, branding, production world, and have for the last 17 years. I had to do the math there for a second. 17 years, that is insane. It's my love, my passion, and I became an entrepreneur in this space. And I've been doing everything from website builds to large scale marketing campaigns. I did famously an event in Times Square. I've partnered with the New York Mets on an event. I've been here, there, and everywhere. For those of you who are not Mets fans, don't judge me for the team. They're not my favorite team either, but I happen to live in New York. They wanted the partnership. I did the work. That being said, welcome to the CEO Sit Down. For those of you who have never been here before, every week I come here live. I post an AMA question box on my Instagram, hence why we usually go live on Instagram as well as YouTube, but today is not the day for that. We post an Ask Me Anything box, and you can ask me anything about branding, marketing, building businesses. I get a lot of questions about AI these days, and actually there's quite a few questions in today's live about AI. We're going to get to as many of them as we possibly can. If you are joining us here live and you have a question along the way, drop them in the chat. I do get them. And we will try to answer them along the way. If we don't get to your question today, maybe we'll get to it next week. This is actually our first CEO sit down since my move. Please excuse the very plain background in my office. It is not completely set up. I haven't even really actually figured out. This is the first time I've had actual lighting set up for a live stream since I moved, and obviously lights are not completely balanced. So things look a little gray on the screen and a little distorted. Like my hair looks brown right now, which is really crazy because my hair is blonde, like very blonde. So I haven't figured out lighting. I haven't figured out what this is going to look like yet. But we're working with it. We're moving as fast as we can, and I didn't want to delay anymore because it's been a month, guys, since we've had one of these. So let's get started. Let me pull up my questions here. Where are they? They should be right here. Okay. You know what? I'm going to start in marketing questions that you guys submitted because there were quite a few of those, and then there were quite a few AI-based questions. So I'm going to answer one of the ones we get a lot, which for those of you who don't know, Live Fearless Media works with both for-profit and nonprofit entities. So what's the difference between marketing for a for-profit entity versus a nonprofit entity? We get this question a lot, or variations a lot. A lot of nonprofits ask me if they should be marketing like a for-profit entity. And here's the big thing. Everybody's looking at nonprofits and for-profits as completely separate, different things, that they have nothing in common. And here's the reality. When it comes to nonprofits and for-profits, it's really only the way the IRS treats you that is very different, right? When it comes to nonprofits, you should be having very similar business system structures, which includes marketing system structures, to what you have in a for-profit entity. There's really not much of a variation or a difference between one or the other. Here's where things get a little tricky. It's when it comes to the actual strategy, because the reality is, even if we just looked at for-profit entities, the strategy of one business and one industry is not going to be the same as the other business and another industry, right? The strategies are different. Why? Because when we look at marketing strategy, there are two main things that drive what strategies we choose. And one of them is the audience we speak to. What are they expecting? What do they need to hear? What do they experience on a day-to-day? What is their background? How does that background influence how they interact with something? All those kinds of things. We think about the audience. And the second thing is the goals, the strategic outcomes we're trying to make happen. Within a business, that's usually selling a product or a service. Within a nonprofit, that is a development-based directive 90% of the time. For those of you who don't speak nonprofit, development-based directives usually mean fundraising initiatives. Not always, but a significant portion of the time. So when we look at the differences between a for-profit entity and a nonprofit entity, we're really looking at what are we trying to achieve, not at should the system be different. And when it comes to the strategy, that is driven by your goal, your strategic goal. Now with nonprofits, not all strategic goals are development-based, but the majority are with marketing. The other thing that a lot of people do is education-based marketing. But I will tell you that education-based marketing gets eyeballs and gets attention. It does not lead to growth of an organization on either side of the equation, right? Nonprofit, for-profit, doesn't matter. Education-based marketing, unless you're educating specifically on how to use a product or how to use a service, will not typically sell a product or service on the for-profit side, and it probably won't bring in new donations. Now, that's not a big deal if you're doing education-based marketing, but again, that comes down to strategy, not difference in system. The difference in system is merely the choice of what audience you're looking at and what goal you're trying to achieve, because those goals and that audience drive what platforms you choose, not whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit entity. And nonprofits should be marketing on the level of for-profits. You don't, but you should be. There should be an actual marketing budget set aside, meaning not just ad costs, but ad development, production of content. All these things should have money behind them. Most people think they're free. They're not. 99% of the time, content is not free in any organization. Because here's the part people forget. Even if you don't hire an agency like mine to fulfill the work, somebody still has to do it. And that's usually an employee. Nonprofit employees still get paid. So it should be thought about when you think about return on investment. There should be a return on investment with your marketing, always. Doesn't matter what type of marketing. There should be some sort of return on investment, and you have to compare what you're spending on it. That includes what you're paying for the employee or the part of the employee's work pay that would be dedicated to that. So say they have 20 different things they do. What's the part, the 1/20th of their paycheck that then would get allocated to marketing? It's a bigger conversation about how we look at things. But the reality is, when we look at the systems themselves, the system that runs marketing for for-profits and the system that runs for nonprofits, there should be very little difference. Very little difference. It is this differentiator in our mind where we think of these things as completely different things that has done such a disservice to the nonprofit industry. It's not even funny. I have so many nonprofits that go that we never have to market. Christian nonprofits, you're particularly bad about this. I have so many people who tell me God told them not to market. And that is a bunch of crapola. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe there's some sort of original way. But the reality is, you're going to market in some capacity. You may not use the traditional system, but you're still going to have to market, because if you build a website, that's marketing. If you write a letter, that's marketing. If you engage in a partnership, that can be considered marketing depending on the type of partnership. So marketing goes well beyond, especially these days, well beyond the traditional, what we thought of ads. Advertising is not the only form of marketing, especially in this day and age. So be aware, the disservice you do yourself when you say, I don't market just because I don't do ads. No, you do market. You just don't know you market. And you need to start thinking about the systems behind that marketing that actually connect to your organization and create actual financial opportunity for it. So almost no differentiator. To wrap that up, almost no differentiator. The big differentiators is who you're targeting, and that's different from organization to organization, and the goals behind the marketing, what you're trying to achieve. Other than that, little to no difference. Which surprises most people, but I also say when it comes to nonprofits that there's almost no difference in anything other than the way the tax code is applied. And for those of you out who are going to fight me on that one, because there are a lot of people who disagree with me on that one, every time I say it online, somebody comes back and disagrees with me. I literally mean when you say, oh, when you apply for a nonprofit, you have to have a mission. First of all, for-profit entities should have missions. In fact, 98% of Fortune 500 companies, which is the 500 top companies in the United States, believe that mission is necessary to drive any kind of financial gain. So if you do not have a mission worth fighting for, most likely your business is not going to survive. So mission doesn't make a distinctor. Now, people say it has to be a service-based mission. That's actually not true. As somebody who's helped build many nonprofits, that is actually not true. You do have to be able to serve somebody, as in like a community or something like that. But by the way, family foundations are not service-based. For those of you who don't know what family foundations are, they are the people who have the highest amount of wealth in the world, in the United States also, who can spend. They have missions. They have 501c3 status, but they don't have to have missions, service-based missions. So for those of you who don't know how that all works, people fight me all the time. It's all about how the tax code is applied. And when you apply, there are certain things you've got to express in order to become a 501c3 here in the United States. That is the only differentiator, is how the paperwork plays out, the legal side of the paperwork, and how the tax code is applied to you, which is also the legal side of the paperwork. So for those of you who fight me on this, you can fight me all day long, but the reality is what the reality is. And I've built too many of these to not know this. I have built the brands around multiple dozens of nonprofits. And I've worked alongside, when we built these brands, we work very closely with both attorneys and accountants, to make sure, because there are some nuances in the way nonprofit brands are built, not marketing, brands are built, that make them a little bit more finicky than the average brand. And so because of that, we have to work with attorneys and accountants very closely, especially when nonprofits are in the startup phases. So I have worked with enough attorneys and enough accountants and on enough build out projects for nonprofits to know the real differentiators in building these systems. There's not much. And the ones that I have known to go on to be the biggest nonprofits or had the fastest growth, I had one organization that went from brand new, just launched, to 20 million in donations within 2 years. And you want to know the difference between that organization and an organization who can't even raise a six-figure in donations? Because I've been on both sides of this coin. The one that did 20 million in donations in 2 years put in a business system based on the Goldman Sachs model. I'm not joking. A very for-profit entity, Goldman Sachs, a financial institution that is known globally. This person used to work for Goldman Sachs, and they took their back office structure from Goldman Sachs and put it in the nonprofit. That organization made $20 million in 2 years. Nonprofits don't have to be poor. This is stupidity. Nonprofits don't have to work on shoestring budgets. Also a stupid fallacy. I'm just saying. Anyways, I got on a roll with that question. You've now been here like 20 minutes on the same question. So I'm going to move on because I've gone off on like 5 different tangents here. Let's go to something. Oh, I like this question. This is AI based. This will be a little bit different. What's the very first thing I should type into an AI tool if I've never used one before? Okay, so here's the deal. My very favorite thing when setting up an AI, which I found the most efficient way to get an AI set up in a way where it will talk like me, write like me, interact in the way that I want it to interact, is to go in and ask it to ask me questions and do an interview. So this looks a little bit different depending on the platform you're using on how it will interview you. So for instance, if I'm in ChatGPT for the very first time my ChatGPT has been around since ChatGPT was in beta. I'm actually not joking. I have had this program since it was in beta. So my ChatGPT doesn't need setups anymore. It hasn't for a very long time, unless I'm introducing like a new client's information. That's a little bit different. But if I am setting up a ChatGPT for a client, this is how I do it. I literally go in and there's a little microphone. So first of all, I'll ask it to interview me. And I give it the specific parameters of what I'm going to be using ChatGPT for. So say you're using it for brand building and content creation and something related to image generation, because I like ChatGPT's image generation. I know that's a little bit of some people don't like that one, but again, I have never been one to back away from the controversy of it all. Anyways, so I'll tell that ChatGPT, this is my first time setting up ChatGPT. I want you to know everything about me and my organization. Here's a little bit about my organization. So like, for instance, if I've already got a website set up or I've got a mission, vision, values, statement, something like that, I'll take that, I'll copy and paste it in, or a document. If I have it already in a document, I will do that. If I've got a website, I will give them the URL link. And then I tell it exactly what it's going to be doing. So copywriting, content creation, and image generation in this example. Before we get started, I want you to know everything you need to know about me. Become an expert in my voice and in my style. Interview me and ask me questions in order to gain the information you need to serve the purposes I've asked you to serve. Now you can reword this, but that's the general idea of what I'm asking it to do. You can do this in a couple ways. You can either type it out and then copy and paste the pieces that need to be copy and pasted in, or you can actually talk to ChatGPT. There's a little microphone. Actually, most of the applications have that little microphone. And if you click that little microphone, you can actually talk directly to those AIs and have conversations back and forth. So I put all that in. I usually type the first prompt. I will click it, let it go, and then it'll come back with questions. Oh, clarifying one thing. I do ask it to ask any follow-up questions upon answer if it needs further information. So it will come either with a list of questions or it will question you one at a time. Depends on how you word it. You can ask it to give you one question at a time and then do follow-up questions. Or you can ask it to give you a list. You can answer all the things and then do more follow-up questions. I personally like doing one question at a time with follow-up. I find that easier for me, but some people like a list. And then you can take that list and either type up all your answers, or what I like to do is I like to activate the microphone at that point. If I haven't already, I'm activating that microphone and I'm literally just talking to ChatGPT and having a conversation. And it will ask me those follow-up questions and I'll answer the follow-up questions. And we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Usually it's somewhere between 20 and 30 questions, although organizations with more detail or more specialization, things like that, where they're more technically, either technically based or more specific to an industry or need more background information, those organizations might have more questions. I know for Live Fearless Media, I think we had about 35 or 40 questions when I first set up. When I first set up Claude, I'm going to go back. You can do this process on any, by the way, any AI generator. However, ChatGPT I've had forever, and ChatGPT kind of learned from my mistakes. That's how I set up my ChatGPT. But this is how, what I'm explaining to you is how I set a client's ChatGPT up. The same process can be brought to any AI, including Claude. Those are my two big ones that I use every day. I use Claude and I use ChatGPT for very different reasons. ChatGPT, I will use image generation. I use it for brainstorming, but not writing. You'll see why in a second. And I use it, that's basically all I use it for these days. I used to use it for a lot more, but I don't very much anymore. On the other side of this, Claude, I use for a lot of projects. I use it a lot for scheduled tasks. I have entire AI-based employees built out in in Claude. I used Claude to build my entire internal system structure. So we have an actual platform we developed with Claude that allows me to track everything from my expenses to my invoices to day-to-day tasks to, there's a list of things. We call it the command center. But it's everything from like annual vision, revenue. We have a ledger here, Platform Pulse, which is literally tracking all the socials, Daily Glance, which is all the things that need to get done. I have a section of mine that's specifically based on the CEO War Room, which is questions that I have to fill out every week to check in on the business, make sure I'm working on the business, not just in the business kind of thing. So those are all different things like that we built out through Claude, but it all started with this interview. That was the first thing we did. And what I had it do at the end of the interview, when I felt like there was enough information in it, and I would go minimum, I would do 20 questions at minimum. You can go further if you want to, you don't have to. I went further because I felt like I needed to. Some organizations you're going to find you need to. Some organizations you're going to find at 20, we're done. Here's the big thing. If you do the speaking version, which is how I do it, do not expect your writing samples to come out perfectly initially. You might want to feed additional writing samples to the AI. Why? Because nobody talks like they write. Not exactly. There might be close, there might be stylistic similarities, but we often don't talk the way we write. And so we do kind of have to send in some writing samples. Short form, you want to do short form, so like social media posts, like X, Twitter, Instagram, etc., versions of those the way you write. Then I would do something a little more long, medium format. So emails, specifically like client emails, not emails that you would send to through a marketing campaign or something of that nature. Then you could feed marketing emails if you have them, blocks of your website if you have a website, and most importantly, I would do a couple of longer format things. So if you have a blog, samples of your blog. If you do not have writing samples that are longer format, I would suggest coming up with a couple questions for yourself around your industry or around a topic within your industry that you like, and write a couple. They don't have to be huge. I'm not talking about like 2,000 word things, but 500, 800, 1,000 words makes all the difference. And I would do 2 or 3 so that AI can start to get an idea of your pattern, because that's what AI works off of, right? It's patterns, pattern recognition. And if it doesn't have your pattern, the pattern that you give it, then it's going to go with the pattern the internet gives it. And this is where issues and errors come in that so many people see. Speaking of that, I know we have a question here about issues and errors on platform, on AI. Hold on one second. Let's see. Oh, will AI just make stuff up? I've heard it lies sometimes. Okay, so here's the issue. It doesn't actually, it's a yes and no answer on the it makes stuff up. Like I said, AI goes with the average, most common answer based on the data it's given. So a significant portion of that is based on the data of the worldwide internet. And if you are like me and you grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, you may have been taught that if you went to research something online, you had to check the sources because not everything online was good information. Well, we've kind of lost track of that in the last couple of years, and we kind of take everything on the internet as rote. And unfortunately, AI cannot tell the difference between something that is correct and something that is incorrect. It's just going off the average answer. So it's not lying to you, and it's not giving you an incorrect answer intentionally. It's what's out there on the World Wide Web that has been fed to the AI agent. This is why setting up your own routine of feeding your AI regularly with your information to work off of is so essential. And it's not just to develop the voice, it's to make sure that the content that comes out actually says what you want it to say. And AI is still not going to get it perfectly, because we very rarely as humans give the AI exactly what it needs. There will still be errors, there will still be issues. This is why every AI system out there, for those of you who don't know, there is a disclaimer in the user agreements for every AI in the world right now that says that there can be errors and that humans are still necessary. Why? Because humans are still necessary. And when it comes especially to branding, marketing, business building, there still needs to be some set of real life eyeballs on the material that comes out of it. So it is something to think about with AI. It's not intentionally giving you a wrong answer. It doesn't even know it's giving you a wrong answer. Just an FYI, people think that these AI bots are programmed to give intentional bad answers. That's not the case, guys. Nobody's doing that. But it is going off the most common information on the internet. And if the subject matter is going in a certain direction, then most likely that's the answer you're going to get. Now, it may not be the answer you want. It may not be the answer you agree with. It may not be the answer you were looking for, but it will be the answer you get. That's why it's so important to feed your own information. And this 20 question setup we talked about earlier, That is the first round of things, right? That is the first time you ever open it up and you're getting started. The reality is this is an ever evolving process, something that you have to do regularly. In fact, I have in both my Claude and my ChatGPT every single week something that runs that's called improvements. It's just titled improvements, and it checks through my entire AI run for the week and the month. Within both my Claude and my ChatGPT. And it tells me where things went wrong, how it can be improved, how the systems can be improved. Should I create new scheduled projects? Should I get more clarity on something? Do I need a new file, like a background file, to answer questions the AI can't answer right now? Is there something where I had to re-queue it multiple times because it didn't give me the answer I wanted? Well, how do we avoid that multi-step re-queue next time around? And it tracks all that. And it comes back with a report every single week of things that can be fixed and altered. Now, I run that report on Friday of every week, and then the following week, I distribute the tasks throughout the week to help fix my AIs, Claude and ChatGPT. I would suggest doing that with any AI you're running. So if you use a video-based AI, run it in your video-based AI. If you have an image-based system, run your image-based system. I would suggest doing this no matter which program you utilize. I have a system called, what is that? This is a less well-known one, Poppy. It's an aggregate system, so it's got multiple AI agents within it. It's not my favorite, but it's not the worst either. That being said, I run this there too, and I check it every week. So it is a way to kind of avoid some of these issues, but the reality is there will always be issues, and it runs every week because of the fact that you're constantly in this update mode. Technology as a whole moves too quickly to ignore it. And the reality is with upgrades and updates and this, that, and the other, things change constantly, consistently. We've seen this. And so because of that, it's easier, faster, and more efficient if you're constantly giving AI a chance to tell you, hey, here's what went wrong. Here's how you can fix it. And you can tell AI to fix it for you, right? This is my favorite thing with Claude and ChatGPT specifically. I get that list and then I feed it back to Chat and Claude, and I go, okay, so you told me this is what's wrong. Fix it. And it'll fix it for me. I'm not fixing it. And I usually will say that on the weekend. I'll start with the biggest tasks on my weekend because I don't really have much of my AI running on the weekend, and I won't be using a huge number of credits. And then during the weekdays, I save my credits for the most essential of tasks that I actually have to do myself in the fixes on the weekdays, and then for my actual work. So that's a way to avoid errors, but the reality is it's not intentionally giving you errors. All right, next question. This is a quick one I want to address because actually this came up 1, 2, 3. Do I need to download something or pay for something to start using AI? You do not need to pay for anything to start using AI. Most AI systems have a free version available to the public. Now, the run rate, how long it takes to run something, and how many runs you can do, that's limited in the free programs, right? What systems you can use, like how high of a system. So like Claude is right now really well known for this insane, my brain is fried today, guys. Fable, right? Fable is, all the attention in the news is on Fable, right? So that's not available to you in any free version. Heck, it's barely available to those of us who pay and pay a lot. there's significant limitations. So the more you pay, the more access you get is kind of the way this works. And so the more access you get and the higher level the AI goes to. So do you have to pay for it? No. If you're just starting out and you've never used AI before and you are literally in this place where you just want to learn and experience a little bit and kind of tinker with it as you're learning, you don't have to pay for anything. ChatGPT has a free version. I think it still has a free version. I know recently they talked about pulling the free version. Hold on. Let me not say that and say I did. Without actually verifying that. Can I get ChatGPT? Yes, there is still a free version. Okay, I thought so. It's just the plus version that you can't get. Now, there's limitations on things. You get access to like the flagship model, and that's it. And so most of that is run at the very basic levels. But if you've never experienced or never utilized ChatGPT before, it's a great way to get into it and start. I find that most people with ChatGPT and Claude specifically, the other platforms are great. You can use them for sure, but until you're where you need to be to use them, these are the places to start. With both of those, I do suggest kind of starting in that free realm. Claude gets a little bit tricky on the free side because unless you are just doing language models, meaning having it write for you, or doing research, which I would, that's the big thing I use ChatGPT for, research. I said earlier I use it for brainstorming and image generation. That's about it. I use it for research also because it's got that deep research mode, and I find that the reports on the deep research mode work better than my Claude reports with research. That's my personal opinion. But going back to the thing I was saying, these free versions are a great place to start. Claude is a little bit tricky because any of the co-work stuff, any of the code stuff, which is really where Claude shines to me, that you can't do with the free version. So if you are getting into Claude just to use Claude as an large language model, an LLM, and you're planning to write with it, and that's about it, free version's fine. I would suggest upgrading to the $20 a month if you're looking to do any kind of real task management through Claude. I think it's $20 a month is the starting. Don't quote me on these prices, guys, because I haven't had these lower prices in a very long time. I've been up at the drop price tag of Claude for a year now, maybe a little bit longer. So I don't even remember what the lower ones are most days. But that being said, it is perfectly acceptable to start at that lower level. If you're going to do task management of any kind, project management of any kind through Claude, if you're looking to do HTML development of any kind, that's where you want to go, is that $20 a month kind of level. You will have limitations on how many runs you can do at that level. You may not be able to go through an entire project in one day kind of thing. But that being said, it will get you started. And then when you get to a place where you want to invest the 100, 200, X number more dollars per month, then you can, but you don't have to at the beginning. You never have to. And you don't have to, in all honesty, at the very beginning either. you can start using it as a large language model from the beginning and do task management later. Although I will say that if the only thing you're using AI for is to write for you, then you're missing out on 90% of what AI can do for you. Just saying. All right. Okay, so this is a good one. What's currently on your desk that tells the real story of this season? This is a random one, and I don't see a copy of it, but I like the question a lot. That's actually a really good question. So what's on my desk that tells the story of this season? This. It's my Kingdom Life Bible. For those of you who don't know, I am a Christian business owner. Some of you won't like me after saying that, but sorry, not sorry. I live, breathe, and die by this thing. A lot of my decisions are made by this. If you ever get a chance to see the inside of my business dashboard, there's a ton of faith-based references inside my personal dashboard. This is not my entire company because I'm aware that not everybody who works for me is a Christian, and I do not demand that everybody who works for me be Christian. But I am, and it's a central part of my life and my business decisions, etc. So if you ever see my command center, the first page of the command center is nothing but faith-based. It's Bible verses, beliefs, daily purpose, identifying anchors. They're all faith-based. And so I have this because it's been a very transition. For those of you who are faith-based, you'll understand what I'm saying. And for those of you who are not, I will explain. It's been a very transitional season. It's been a very transitional season. So major move, moved my office, moved my home. I'm still in the same city, but a lot of my life is shifting. And so this thing, I'm living and breathing because of it. And so for those of you who don't understand transitional, in a very transitional season is everything's shifting underneath me. A lot of things are changing. My business has been shifting and changing. My life has been shifting and changing. And so this is essential. This is, it's quite literally gone from my desk to my pillow and back again more times than I can count every day. Every single day. I usually choose a version of, not a version, a translation of the Bible for each season that I'm in. Right now I'm in the King James Version again. I find that I tend to, when I'm in a tough season, tend to go back to that King James because it's the original text. I've also always got journals. I've always got some sort of book. Let's see, what else do I have that might talk about the season? Oh, here we go. I have these like little reminder cards. It's backwards for you guys, but this one says, I am brave. Goes on a little stand. I've looked for one that says I am fearless, but I don't have one yet. I'm hoping to find one eventually. There's something on this one. Just little reminders that I can have regularly, daily, to keep my going. Let's see. What's another question? Because we only got a few minutes left. And I know my first couple questions went way longer than expected. So we've got a lot of questions we didn't get to. Oh, this is a good one. How do you structure a week to get everything done without losing your mind? First of all, I don't know that many people would say I don't lose my mind. Uh, Anybody who works with me or for me probably thinks I'm a little nuts 90% of the time. But I will say I'm pretty even keel nuts. I'm a typical creative, guys. Those who work for me know this. They're not surprised by this. I'm a creative through and through. And so I have a lot of points where I come up with a really kooky idea. In fact, I've got a binder somewhere in this office that is called my crazy book of crazy ideas. For those of you out there who go, don't be negative. Crazy is not a negative word. Not to me anyways. I think I've been called crazy so much in my life that I've actually turned it into a good thing. Because everybody who's done something extraordinary has done something crazy. So I think most people would say I've as far as not losing my mind, I think they'd probably say I have lost my mind quite a few times. But as far as like staying organized, staying on task, making sure things get done, there are three things I rely on. Three things that I rely on. First is I have a weekly rotation, for lack of a better way to describe this, a rhythm that I go to every single week. So certain days I do certain things. Now, do these bleed into each other? Yes, absolutely. Because like, for instance, I've got a day that's content creation day. It happens to be today. Why do I do that? Because I know I'm going live with you all on Thursdays. So I do the rest of my content creation on the same day. And so 90% of what I do content-wise gets done on this day. Now, does that sometimes bleed to other days? Absolutely. But I try to create that rhythm where every Thursday, that's where I focus. Fridays are my CEO days. This is the work on the business day, not in the business day. So I very rarely take clients' calls. I will take them occasionally when absolutely necessary. I'm never going to sit there and leave my clients in a lurch, but I won't typically take them 24/7, and they usually have to be scheduled in advance. We have had the occasional emergency where I've had to step in on a Friday, but I try not to. This is the day where I review my numbers. This is the day where I review my products and services. This is the day where I refine offers and deals. This is the day I refine the marketing. That's what Friday is for, right? On the business, not in the business. Then on like Monday's my setup day. That's the day I run my week. That's the day where I'm with the most client calls and check-ins and everything else. Like everything has its kind of day in the rotation. Does it bleed? Absolutely. I try not to. So that rhythm is one of the things that keeps me on track. The second thing that keeps me on track is Sunday. Should I do the Bible? But Sunday is not just for church, although it is a big part of my day because I usually go to online service at 10:30 and I usually am in person at 6 o'clock. Sunday is also the day I set for my reboot. What is the reboot? My reboot is look at the week past and look at the week coming up. And also look at the long-term goals, the initiatives, and the things that I have in my basket and set up my week coming. Now, for instance, I already have meetings in my calendar usually the week before. I usually have certain things already set up every week in my calendar. But then I take all the different initiatives, the goals and everything else, and I put them in my proper days to work on those things. So for instance, I mentioned earlier the CEO war room that I do that on Fridays. And I will intentionally set a time in my calendar that says, this is what I'm working on at this time. So I do that. I set my calendar with all those different nuanced things on Sunday. So that's a big way that I do this. And 3, I use a lot of AI when it comes to my scheduling and keeping on tasks. I am a creative, guys. I am a creative through and through. I'd love to say I'm also a lot of it ADHD. I have hyperfocus issues. I have hyperactivity issues depending on the day. And I'm aware that keeping a traditional schedule is not my easiest task. Now, in a perfect world, I'd have tons of people that could keep me on task, but that's expensive and that gets expensive real fast. So instead of doing that, I have AI. And I have an AI that is set up to reference my schedule, my to-do list, and my top 3. Every day I set a top 3 things that must get done in the day. And it checks me, let's see, 4 times a day. So at the very beginning of the day, when I turn on my computer at 8:45 in the morning, before my 9 o'clock work time, it sends me a notification through my text message to go to my AI and double check that these are the actual things I want it to be checking in on through the day. So it has my top 3 of the day, it has my schedule, it has all the things. It will come back to me and say, is this all correct for the day? So this is the first thing I do in the day. So I submit any additional answers I might need. It asks me about my energy levels, a few other things, so that maybe if I've had a really bad night's sleep and my energy is really low, maybe we'll be adjusting it. If it's 120 degrees outside, maybe it's taking my walk off the schedule so that I'm not walking in 120 degree weather, which around here is actually a possibility. That kind of thing. So it checks in on my day. Then 3 times throughout my actual work day, it comes back and checks on me. Hey, how was this meeting? Did you do this? Did you do that follow-up, etc.? It checks in on me. And the very end of the day, at 6 o'clock at night, I get one last message to fill out the final report for the day. What did I get done? So between all those things, that's what really keeps me on track. That and a praying mother. Because some of you are laughing and some of you don't believe me, but that makes a big difference with a daughter like me who is a little, like I said, I think crazy is a good thing, but I'm a little crazy. I acknowledge this fact, guys. This is a very well-known, acknowledged fact. So, all right. Let's do one last one and then I'll end it for today because we got about 4 minutes left. What's something about running a business that no one warned you about? I think most people, when they think starting a business, especially if you were somebody who started near the COVID era, I started before the COVID era, but if you started around the COVID era, anywhere close to the COVID era, and even a little bit before, the language around starting a business was all about freedom. And, they gave this idea of kind of the laptop lifestyle was becoming very popular even before COVID, right? If you didn't know, there were entire programs out there for people who wanted to work remotely and travel the world. This was pre-COVID. With COVID, it became like an every business thing. It was certain businesses and certain industries prior to that. My industry being one of them, right? If you work in branding, marketing, if you work in advertising, if you worked in production, entertainment, any of those industries, which are the industries that I've been a part of for the last 17 years, you know that our lives were built on the flexibility to go and do. Because a lot of our things were remote, right? Especially if you were production and entertainment. Moving around is not an uncommon thing. There are some people that are like LA based who never go anywhere else, but the reality is a lot of us were in a world where flex was a big thing, and we would go and do and be contractors and be consultants and things like that. And in that world, you never really had a home location that you were responsible to. And so even before COVID, this was a big thing. If you started a business at COVID, the marketing 100% around building a business was all about freedom at that point. You have the freedom to do what you want, when you want, how you want. I'm sorry. I don't know who thought that you would have like time freedom, because that's what we associated with. We had time freedom. It's not time freedom. It's not time freedom. It's choice freedom. And so the reality of, people say this all the time, people work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours for somebody else. And that's the crazy part of this, right? As an entrepreneur, we choose willingly, insanely, to work the hours we do so we don't work 40 hours for somebody else. And that means my time freedom is out the window, if you haven't figured that out. I get freedom of choice, freedom of location. I get to say what I do and don't do. I get to say what is necessary and what is not. I get to say where I will be and where I will not be. I don't have time freedom. I run a really strict schedule that requires me to be on top of it. It's why I have so many things built out around my schedule. And unfortunately, we've been sold a bill of goods, especially my generation, millennials who built businesses. Also, I would say Gen Zs a little bit in this world too. We've been sold this bill of goods that we get total freedom if we just make it as business owners. But anybody I know who's a business owner and who's successful works their tail off for it. And so that's something I think most of us haven't been made aware of until we get to a certain place where we're like, oh, like, this is not the freedom I thought it was. I thought it was going to look like this, that, and the other. And social media, unfortunately, has made it worse. In all honesty, I have people on social media, I see it all the time, where they go, if you just learn ABC, XYZ, you can be chilling on the beach 24/7. I'm like, I don't know any business that runs that way. Unless it's their husband's business or their wife's business and they're sitting on the beach. That's the reality. So yes, you get freedom of choice. You do not get time freedom from business. And I think that is one of the things that I wish I had known going in. I'm more than happy to sacrifice my time. Like, I have no problem with the fact that I came to that realization. But I do wish I had known going in, because I always felt behind. I always felt like there was something wrong because I wasn't achieving what the social media dream of what a business looked like. And then when I talked to people who actually built really successful businesses, and I knew people who built multi-billion-dollar businesses, when I had those conversations and they're talking about the things they sacrificed and the things they did and the amount of time they put into things, I went, oh, yeah, you got the freedom to choose what you do and don't want to do, but you do not have time freedom. That's not what this looks like. That's not the reality of entrepreneurship. That's not the reality of business building. It's the sad reality, but it's the truth. And we get sold a bill of goods pretty regularly. Anyways, that's all my time for today, guys. I'm sorry we didn't get through as many questions as I wanted to. I had hoped to get through a few more, but those first 2, 3 kind of went off into like 5 different tangents. So please forgive me. That being said, we will do another CEO set down next week, Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's 2 p.m. Eastern Time if you'd like to join us. If you'd like to submit your questions, head over to my Instagram, Live Fearless CEO. We'll post a question box the day before. So Wednesday morning, there'll be a question box up. Feel free to submit them there or submit them in the comments of any of the videos if you're watching on the replay.